Hi, this is Darren from SimNation. Just continuing the video series around how to play Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2023. We're focusing on offensive game planning today. Just a few quick caveats around this. I'm not going to talk about my week one matchup with the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is a human controlled team that's bio-equal for those of you who know or follow this league. Uh, one, I just don't want to create an opportunity where I give people the ability to use these videos to defeat human coaches. I'm okay doing with the CPU teams, mostly because the CPU teams are very consistent with how they call plays, so it's easier to pick up on the trends. The key here is you need to know your opponent. If you can get to understand your opponent, whether it's human or CPU, you should be able to put yourself in the best position to win games. And a lot of game planning is nothing more than one, understanding what your opponent's doing, two, understanding what you do well, and then three, creating the matchup issues or creating matchups that will benefit you in the game. And the benefit could be that you create a matchup where you put someone who's far superior to the person that they're playing on the opposite side, and it gets you a lot of yards. Or it creates a situation where you negate someone who's really strong by putting somebody very strong in their path, at least to slow them down. Now, Buffalo is going to be one of these cases where I will talk about negation a lot because Buffalo has some players on the defensive side of the ball that I need to account for in my offensive game plan. So I think the first real step here is to actually look at Buffalo, and we're going to do this by clicking on them. I'm not logged in as the commish, as you can see. So CPU teams tend to run whatever the staff or the coaches that they have are good at. Human teams, less so. There are some human coaches who do that, and they do it very well. And if you pick up on that trend where their game plans look like it's the CPU coaches running it, it makes it a little bit easier to game plan for them because you have a lot more tendencies there. Versus if it's someone like Peter who changes his game plan every week because he builds his game plans to whoever he's playing, it's going to be a lot harder to find tendency. Now you'll find some generic ones like Peter likes to throw the ball long, he likes to run the ball outside, and this is hypothetical. That's not what Peter does, by the way. But you'll be able to build off of those tendencies. Or if you look at someone like me, is I tend to run a lot of balanced run plays, and I tend to throw the ball medium, based on the type of quarterbacks I typically have. So that will at least give you something to game plan with when you start to think about the defense. And on the offense, if you notice that they're running a lot of 5-2, 4-3, 3-4, that means they're stacking up against the run traditionally, versus if they're running dime, quarter, or nickel packages, that traditionally means that they are guarding against the pass. So the first thing we're going to look at is the staff. Most CPU teams use their head coach's playbook. Some, if they were recently played by a human, will run a different playbook, but generally you're safe with CPU teams thinking that they're going to run their head coach's playbook. So what we see here is Paul Sharkey. He's a good offensive coach. He's a good defensive coach. He's not good at preparation. He runs post style, and we'll see this when we look at the plays in a second. And then he likes to run a 5-2 defense. Will traditionally, he's going to try to take the run game away. He's not doing very well with that, by the way. So the next thing I do is after I look at the coaches, I'm not going to look at all of them because this video will get really long, is you look at the last games that they played. So the hardest game to game plan for is week one. And the reason for that is the only information you have is from preseason. And if you get coaches like myself and a bunch of others who turn on the CPU in preseason so you can't get an idea of my playbook, it makes it really hard. And it's the reason why you'll see some very lopsided scores in week one is because from an offensive standpoint, you're game planning for a defense that they're probably not even using. Now, again, with the CPU, you're going to be relatively safe because the CPU doesn't do that. But what we're going to look at here is we're building an offensive game plan. So what we're really focused on in play analysis is understanding what is working or what plays worked well against Buffalo's defense. Um, so what you immediately see is, okay, off tackle left looks like it was successful. Tight end deep out looks like it was successful. Wide receiver short out looks like it was successful. And you're just going to do this, and you're going to jot these down, copy it into an Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is you want to do. But what you get a sense is people running to the left were largely more successful than people running to the right. And a lot of these plays are balanced or outside plays that seem to work well. And then when you're throwing the ball, what you're seeing is like tight end deep out, if I'm not mistaken, is a balanced pass play versus like skinny post, if I remember correctly, is a medium pass. So it looks like a lot of the plays in this game that were successful when they were playing Miami, when Miami was throwing against the Buffalo defense, medium and balanced passes were working as well as running outside or running balanced. So in this game, Buffalo beat the Seahawks. Seahawks, of course, are spoof. Miami's, of course, so. So again, we're just looking at the plays to see what was successful to see if we can see a trend line. So ends were good. Let's see how they were working with the lefts. The left didn't look that's good. It looks like they adjusted. Just making sure I'm looking at the right one. Okay. So what this also gives you is what are they calling on these downs, because you need this for your strategy, right? And what I'm really looking for here is right here, what type of defenses are they looking at? And it looks like a lot of 3-4, 4-3. In this game, it looks like they played a lot more pass defense against Seattle. So the next thing is you need to try to figure out who the starters are. The reason why this is going to be what you build your depth chart against. So the easiest way to tell starters is either watch the game, which requires time, or go here and choose starters and filter that for defense, or you just go position by position. So what I'm looking at here is Gardner and Mentor are the two defensive ends. So these are your end people. Gardner's a problem from a matchup perspective because he's fast and he's strong. He's not very agile. Mentor's not really a problem. So in Gardner's case, I want to try to avoid him, or I want to try to match up somebody who I have who is quick and strong on the offensive line. So this would be a tackle, right? In Mentor's case, I want to target him because I think that he doesn't have the skills that will line up good against my running game at Pittsburgh. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that I have watched the game, by the way, is that Mentor is actually on the left side, which means he's the left end, which means that he's on my strong side when I'm running the ball. For those who don't understand strong and weak, strong is wherever the tight end is, weak is where the tight end is not. The thought process is if you're running to your strong side, you're running where you have more blockers. On the opposite side, when you run to your weak side, you're running where you have less blockers. A lot of times in a lot of these type of games, the weak side is actually where you'll get better results because everybody's focused on the strong side. So what this looks like is because he's on the right side, I will probably want to run to the right. However, at Pittsburgh, I balance it. I can run to the left, but I'm going to have to negate Gardner. And I've got someone I think I can negate him with. On the defensive tackle side, based on the tape I watched, is McNeely looks like he's on the left. Christie looks like he's on the right. I'm sorry. Christie looks like he's on the left. McNeely's on the right, which means he's on my strong side. He's on my weak side. So again, this guy's pretty strong. He's got good speed. He's a good tackler. Not very agile. That's going to create a little bit of an issue for me in the fact that I'm going to need to not run the ball inside, which is good. don't intend to run the ball inside. McNeely is not that great, so if I wanted to run the ball inside, I need to do it on the left side, on my weak side. So if I'm going to run inside, I'm going to only use left plays, so like dive left, what are some other ones? Slam left, misdirection, slams to the left. I'm going to try to avoid doing anything inside to the right because Christie's strong enough that it's probably not going to help me. Linebacker wise, he runs a lot of 5-2. So, but it looks like he's using 3-4 as well. So generally the CPU puts the best linebacker at the middle. So Montanez is the best linebacker in this case. So I'm pretty sure he's lining up in the middle. Um, I think that the other middle linebacker, based on what I saw, is Tovar. So generally speaking, I want to stay out of the middle because Montanez is he is probably one of the best linebackers in the league. I mean, that's great speed, that's awesome tackling. He's got the skill. His endurance isn't great, but everything about him is strong. Tovar, if I am going to run, I'm probably going to look at running to the strong side inside, which would mean that I would have to negate a very strong tackle. So I'm just going to stay away from the inside. Atkins and Pitt look to be on the outside. None of these guys is really all that concerning to me. I mean, Pitt is kind of good, but I think he's playing on the strong side where my tight end should be able to take him and negate him. Whereas Atkins is on the left side, which means if I can put a good tackle on Gardner, I can probably get around that corner and open up some space for my running back. Cornerback wise, the Buffalo's a little weird because what I'm seeing is that their nickelbacks are not cornerbacks. Their nickelbacks are free safeties or strong safeties. I'm going to avoid Hagan like the plague. He is just, I'm not going to get him short. I'm not going to get him medium. I'm not going to get him long. He's got the hands to pick the ball off left and right. He arguably is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So the general rule of thumb is he's probably playing CP1. CP a lot of times will play aligning their defense or playing in a way that will they're playing CB1 matches up to wide receiver 1, CB2 matches up to wide receiver 2 instead of the opposite when it's turned off where uh, CB1 is playing up against the right wide receiver, CB2 is playing up against the left wide receiver. So general rule of thumb, avoid Hagan. So I don't want to throw anything to wide receiver 1 if I can help it. I'm not going to put my strongest wide receiver on wide receiver 1. Now, if I had a receiver that had equitable speed, had equitable size, equitable agility, I probably would, and I would just hope that the matchup falls my way. Cherry is pretty good as well. I could get him on the short passes, I'm pretty sure. And he's undersized, so if I put a big old wide receiver on him, I should be able to beat him out. So generally seeing what I'm seeing here is I don't want to throw to wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. So the plays I'm going to call are going to focus more on the internal wide receivers, the running back or the tight end. Free safeties, I mentioned earlier that there was a lot of what it looks like is their nickel backs or really their free safeties. Because I saw a lot of Esposito and Cardenas, um, which is interesting, and it looks like Wilcox was playing more as the free safety. So the reason why I say I want to throw it on the inside is I win all these matchups. Now I got to be careful with Cardenas, who I think, if I'm not mistaken, is playing nickelback 1, which means that they'll take wide receiver 3. So I'm beginning to look more and more like I want to pick plays that throw to wide receiver 4 or the tight end. Esposito, I can beat him most of the time. I don't need to worry about him. I don't need to worry about Wilcox. Strong safety wise, he only has one and it's quick, and I'm going to win that matchup 90% of the time. So if I'm going to throw the ball, what I've determined based on looking at the other team is I need to throw the ball to wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, tight end, or running backs. I need to stay away from my two outside wide receivers, which means I may throw a lot of ends and I may throw a lot of posts, or I'm going to pick plays where I know that the wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 position are getting it, or tight end deep outs. Now, one of the things I did notice uh, is that they are very susceptible to tight end deep outs. And I saw that in the play analysis. I saw that they were very susceptible to skinny posts, square ends. These are type of plays that generally play in the middle of the field as opposed to out. They were susceptible to hooks out, but hooks out has a lot of plays where, especially in a shotgun, where either the tight end or wide receiver 3 are going to the out and the 2 are going to the in, wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, which means that that play will largely be successful. I'm not going to throw streaks because there's no way I can move faster than those two cornerbacks. So I have a good idea of what I want to do now. So now the key is I need to line my team up to do that. Um, so the first thing I want to start, and again, this is an offensive video, right? So I'm not going to talk about defense, is I know I'm going to throw a lot of medium passes. I'm probably not going to go long a lot. I'm going to try to stay short. Um, so in looking at this, Everett Burgess is probably the right play if I'm throwing long. The problem is his intelligence is pretty low. So he's going to commit a lot of mistakes. Plus his skill is not all that high. So I'm going to start Pills because Pills can throw medium pretty well. He's smart. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. I am going to struggle a little bit with short passes. So I'm going to try to focus on medium passes. So what we're going to do is we'll make Thomas Pills that. We'll put Burgess as backup, and then we'll put Reese as that. So, like I said before, we're going to run the ball a lot probably in this game because it looks like that they have a lot of problems guarding against balanced and outside plays. So we're going to look at running back. This one's a no-brainer to me. I have one of the best running backs in the league in Lackey, so Lackey's going to play. But because I'm going to go outside a lot, I'm going to focus more on speed than I am going to focus on agility. So I will probably put Lango as the backup because he's faster. Thankfully, I'm blessed with having running backs that have pretty good hands, so I don't got to worry about that. I am going to be blocking a lot, so I want to make sure that I have a pretty decent blocker in for run blocking. But I'm going to go with Collins only because Collins gives me some opportunity to come out of the backfield and catch the ball. Because again, his free safeties or his safeties and his linebackers aren't really good at coverage, so I can kind of do that. Now here's the matchup that I was talking about is I need to negate Gardner. Gardner's on the right side, which means he's lining up against my left tackle. Um, so as I look through my tackles, I'm going to have no one that has his speed because offensive linemen are not that fast. But a 50 speed is actually pretty good to go against that. If I'm going to be running the ball off of that side, I need to make sure I have someone who has good run blocking skills and who is relatively strong and pretty agile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Holly on that side because he's my best run blocker. He's also my strongest guy. Now he's not as agile, so that could become a problem. But of the people I have to choose between, the only person who I might take is Bickford, but then I'm giving up blocking skill. On the right side, I'm safe going with that. I'm going to put Robbins on the right side because he's one of my best blockers, and that works. Now, because again, I'm going to run a lot of balanced, which will go between the tackle and the guard, I do need to make sure that my guard can knock Gardner off the ball or knock McNeely off the ball. So again, I'm gonna look for a little bit stronger guy, and I'm gonna look for someone who's got speed and has those. So I'm gonna choose McClendon for this side, and then of course I'm gonna put Shipley on this side because again, he's just a phenomenal blocker when he's healthy. Center, I'm not gonna run up the middle, so there's no need to change Boone. Now, as we talked about, is what I said is wide receiver 2 are largely areas where I'm not going to throw the ball. But if I do throw the ball, I need to create some matchup issues. So I'm going to move Deal to wide receiver 3 because I'm going to throw there more often. I'm also going to do wide receiver 4, by the way, is the backup to wide receiver 1. I'm going to likely take my next best wide receiver and put them there, and that would likely be Sturgeon. By the way, he got nerfed pretty hard on his speed this offseason, which kind of made me a little bit mad, but we'll deal with that later. I'm going to keep Bradley where he is. I'm going to put Shockley, sorry. And then because I rotate a lot, I'm going to now start to say that this will be McCloskey, this will be Flores, and then this will be Flores, and then I'll rotate them. And what I mean by rotation is this is my default package. My package 2 is my backups. So I'm just gonna essentially copy that, and then I will just take the starter and move him to whoever the backup is, and that's all I'm doing. But let's go back to this package. Tight end wise, if you notice, I have to fix a lot because it was preseason. I had people playing out of position. At tight end, because I have an opportunity to really have matchup issues, uh, it's going to be Bohm and Matthews. I'm going to probably put Stevens as the backup. Either that or Flores. Flores is a pretty big wide receiver, and then do Stevens. And that's my offense. So I've got really good matchup issues. So I'm negating Gardner Hill. I'm advantaging myself on this side against what is arguably a very weak defensive end and mentor. I'm also negating Christie with Shipley. And then I am overpowering McNeely with McClendon, and then Boone should be able to hold his own. Running back wise, again, I'm going with a speed package, so Lackey and Langle are going to be my top 2 backs. Collins, I need to have some threat from out of the backfield, so I'm going with him, even though Stevens is the better blocker. Collins is still good enough. And then what I'm doing is saying I'm not really going to mess with him with wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. I'm really going to focus on wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4. Now, Shockley should match up somewhat decently against Hagan. Bradley will definitely match up well against Cherry. So I'll get some good plays out of that. But as we move over to strategy, first of all, I'm going to create a custom playbook. And what I really want to do here is I want to probably run the ball 40%, run the ball 60% of the time on the first and 10 and first and shorts, and then I want to probably go 60 to 70% on the mediums where I'm throwing the ball. A lot of my throws, I'm going to focus on balanced plays and medium plays because I have a better advantage there. And on the run plays, I'm focused on balance and outside. So what that means is I'm going to run a lot of off tackles, a lot of counters. I'm going to run a lot of end around sweeps and pitches. And then for the passing game, I'm going to really focus more on things like tight end deep out. I'm going to focus more on things like skinny posts, square ends, comebacks, ends, those type of plays. So this is just how I'm going to play. I'm going to play, well, on first down, I am going to run the ball more than I'm going to pass. On the medium and longs, I'm going to pass more than I'm going to run. And we'll talk about this when we talk about defense, so I'm not going to go into this too much. Now, playbook wise, because I saw what I saw, I would create normally a new playbook, and I'm going to put all the plays that I saw were successful against them in this playbook. So let's just say off tackle was really good against them. So off tackle left, we'll add that. Sweep left, I think, was another one if I remember correctly. sweep left. Don't worry about yours, by the way, and I'll talk about this in a second for going forward. But sweep right, and then tight end deep out. And I'm not going to do this, but I think you're getting the gist of what I'm saying is based on what I saw was successful against them, this is going to be my playbook for this game. Now, if you subscribe to Gary's Wolf, thought is you're using the playbook that's successful for you and you're just tweaking it and you're not creating an individual matchup. But in this case, I'm going to choose the plays that I saw that were good because I have a good enough team that I can mirror some of this. Now, if I have a quarterback who can't throw long and you notice that they were throwing a lot of balls long, you can't mirror that playbook because your quarterback can't throw long. If you notice that they're going outside, but you don't have running backs that have good speed and can't get outside, or you don't have the linemen that can push outside, then you shouldn't try that. You need to focus on what you do well. But this is a general beginning for how I would do this. Um, and then over time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what plays are working. And generally, for me, if a run play is less than 3 yards per carry, it's not a good run play. You need to get rid of it. So like in this case, if this was the following week and I still saw this was 4-1 average, I would remove off tackle left. It means it's not successful for me. Same thing for all the other plays. So for me, run plays got to be more than 3. For short passing plays, need to be more than 3. For medium passes plays, needs to be more than 6. For long pass plays, really needs to be more than 8. And that defines success for me from an offense. So now, a lot of people don't understand game planning screen. And let me make this easy from an offensive perspective. Whatever you are calling hill is what ultimately is going to be the plays that your offensive coordinator calls. So the difference between conservative, balanced, aggressive, this determines how your level of aggression, right? If you put aggressive, they're going to go for it a lot on fourth down. They're not going to kick field goals as often. If you put it on conservative, they're going to kick field goals instead of going for it on fourth down. And balanced means they're going to play somewhere in the middle. Focus tells whether you're doing pass or run or balanced. Balanced, of course, means that you're balancing the amount of run and pass plays you're doing. Now, again, the thing here is if you set this to 1 and you set conservative pass, you're going to run the ball still. It overrides that. But generally, it says, what is my focus? Tempo, this determines how fast you're running. So normal is just the normal, you're taking a huddle and then getting to the ball. Very slow means you're taking the huddle, you're waiting in the huddle, you're waiting on the ball, and you're trying to run the clock out as much as possible before you call the play. Slowly, slightly less of that. Fast means you're getting on the ball quickly. Very fast means you're running no huddle, essentially, and you're constantly going. Now, if you got the people to do with endurance to do it, you can do this. But most of my teams tend to run normal or slow, mostly because I'm compensating for potential endurance problems. Passing preference, this is again, because I'm going to want to do balanced or medium, I can choose balanced or medium. And what that means is when it comes over to the playbook, I'm trying not to give myself away, I'll choose an old one, is when you look at this, this setting right here, depth, tells you that corresponds back to the balanced or medium. So if I have a lot of things in my playbook that are long, and I choose medium, it's going to create a problem with the offensive coordinator. So traditionally, you want to choose a setting that actually matches your playbook. So in this case, balanced means that depth-wise, I need to choose medium or balanced because most of my plays are medium or balanced. I'll choose medium. Little flaw in the game, just click there and choose medium. And then target, this is where that balance versus outside tight ends running back over the middle. If I know I'm going to throw a lot of plays like ends, I'll just choose over the middle. I choose none because that way I'm not forcing the coordinator to choose a set of plays. I'm letting him choose the ones. I mentioned before about I want to avoid wide receiver one, wide receiver two. If I would have put Shockley in Hill, most of the passes are going to Shockley at wide receiver one. I put Deal at wide receiver three, so I'm going to pick him as my primary wide receiver, which means that the quarterback's really going to focus on him. Third down back, this would be Lackey. So traditionally, your third down back, you want to have someone who has good hands, good speed, good agility, can block because that's what a scat back does. Goal line back is someone who is your strongest runner. In this case, again, it's going to be Lackey. Lackey is the better of them. Now, 2 seasons ago, I had a guy named Erolano who I let him handle all the short yardage situations because he just had strength and he had the ability to run inside. Running focus, again, this is just how you want to run. I'm choosing balanced because I really want to use the sweeps. I'm sorry, I want to use the off tackles and the counters in my playbook. I will traditionally move this between balanced and outside because I don't run inside. Now, if I notice that the outside linebackers and the ends are really, really good against the run, this is where I would change this to inside because I would make sure that I'm running the ball more inside or I'm running from a power formation. Now, the key here is, again, you have to change your playbook to have inside run plays. If you don't have inside run plays within your playbook, they can't be called. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I always choose mixed, mostly just because I don't want it locking in, or I'll choose none. And the reason for that is I'm saying call whatever play, I don't kill. I don't want you focusing on like plays where it has a setting of blocking for the running back. Because again, if we go back to the playbook, you can see that. Well, let's choose, what's one I know has it. What it's going to say is the running back, this play is only going to get called if you set it to catching, mixed, or none, or balanced. So again, this is what is telling the coordinator what plays out of your playbook to call. So a lot of people don't make that connection. Um, I think we've talked about formations. I'm not going to talk about that. So the key is depending on the result that you get, what you want to do is the first thing is go in, see what worked, see what didn't, and of course you do that through the game analysis. Or what you can do is, well, I don't want to click on it because I have a game tonight. But you can actually, under strategy, especially early in the season, you can come here to play analysis and it'll show all the plays and show how good they were working. Now, the hardest thing on offense is you can't see the exact plays that the defense is calling, whereas they can see the exact plays you're calling. I have some mixed feelings on that, but it is what it is. What I would say is the other way to do this is also when you're doing your play calling, if you know that they are traditionally blitzing on first down, make sure that maybe you throw something that's short or gets the ball out of the quarterback's hands really quickly and you can maximize that. But this is how I approach game planning. Hopefully this video makes some sense to you and it helps you. But I think in just summary, the key is know your opponent, align to your opponent, uh, make sure that the plays you're calling are plays that are you're successful at and you have the capability to be successful at. So if you're going to mirror an opponent's playbook that beat the team you're playing, you need to make sure you actually have the people who can pull that off. Because if they can't, then that's going to be a real big problem for you. And then the last thing is just keep adjusting. Look at your playbook. What plays are working? What plays aren't working? Get the plays that aren't working out. Remember that kind of mantra of running plays should be more than 3 yards per carry. Short passing plays should be more than 3 yards per completion. Medium should be more than six. Long should be more than eight. And what you'll find is over time, your offense will get a lot better. And again, just like we talked about when we were talking about attributes, is if you're going to run outside, you need to have speed, you need to have agility, and you need to have hands. If you're going to run inside, you need to have strength, and you have to have agility. If you're going to run a lot of different plays with the wide receivers, you want to make sure they have hands. And then again, short passing relies more on agility and hands than it does on speed, whereas long pass plays rely more on speed. Quarterback wise, if you don't have an arm, don't throw long. If they have an arm in the 80s, think about throwing the ball medium. And then, of course, if they have a high accuracy, meaning 80 or 90, you should be throwing short. So just those are the basics of the offense. Hopefully this video helps you. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.